What's up, YouTube? My name is Dirty, and I want to be your commander coach. I want to make shit decks good and your good decks the fucking shit. If you have a deck you want me to take a look at, and send it to me at thedirtydylanshow.com or tweet me at thedirtydylanshow. This also might be a long video, but if you like it, or if I fault your boredom at any time, anyway, or whatever, give it a like, a comment, subscribe, really whatever you want to do. This is just for fun. I want to hear feedback and do whatever I can to help spread the love of this format, this amazing, juicy, delicious format. Alright, so this deck comes from Quigs, and it's Xenagos, the God of Revels. He's a 5-drop, 3 colorless, a red and a green, whose super type is enchantment and creature. So when you cast him, you'll be casting a creature and enchantment spell. But that also means he's considered a creature if he is in any other zone other than the battleground. Speaking of, as with being the god, he's bound to the drawbacks of devotion, which prevent him from actually being a creature on the battlefield unless a player's devotion color is equal to the number of mana symbols of that color among the mana cost of permanents that player controls. So in Xenagos' case, he would need any variation of red and green mana until it equals 7. Finally, the real meat of the card is at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. So obviously, this is the reason we run the deck. It's fucking great. So the first thing you need when creating any sort of deck, it doesn't matter what format you're playing. If you're playing EDH, Commander, the same fucking thing, Standard, Modern, Legacy, it don't matter, man. Vanguard, who cares? First thing you need to think about is establishing a win condition. And from looking at your deck list, I was having a bit of trouble figuring out what yours really is. You have some real threats in the deck, but I don't think there is enough focus to really solidify wins on the regular. Note, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it, each deck has its own viability in your local meta. Wizards has no intention of making Commander bigger than it already is. The metas do tend to change in regards to where you are playing and whom you are playing with. The rules committee is a bunch of fucking old guys who really don't care about the game as much as we do. First thing I wanted to do was come up with a win condition, as I said, using most of the cards in the deck you're already running. What I'm going to do is come up with a budget deck for you, and then something that's a little bit more viable and maybe a little bit more expensive, but we'll really see how things go. What I like about this general is that he reminds me of a boxer almost. You can build this deck in an effective aggro style, with a heavy haymaker or an interesting tempo control style. After taking a look at what I thought would be really fun to try and play around is the synergy between Mage Slayer and Xenagos, as your heavy haymaker all the while throwing jabs in between. The beauty with this strategy is that it helps keep the opponents on their toes the entire time, and if you can bait out a critical removal at the right time, victory is all but assured. Pretty much the rule of tempo. To do this, I need to make sure that there is always some sort of threat on the board, or have an answer to what's being played, and if possible, find ways to deal damage straight to the opponent's face based on my creature's power. What I want to do is remove the need to trample and use the buff from Xenagos to deal direct damage. In combination with Xenagos and Mage Slayer, we're going to be playing cards like Fling, Soulsfire, Chandra's Ignition, all ways to deal damage to your opponent's creatures and your opponent's face. After I thought of a win con, I did a little pre-editing to your mana base, removing cards that are pretty weak in my opinion, cards like Teetering Peaks, but think about it. Would you rather play a land untapped and be able to use it on turns 1 to 5, or would you like to set yourself back a turn just for the off chance you can give a creature +2 attack at some point, and only once? It's just a shit card. I decided to throw in a few cards that could produce more than one color for you, and cards that do not come into play tapped already. But if there was a condition as to why they provided a much better abilities, as in Temple of Abandon with Scrying, and being able to tap for 2 mana as opposed to Teetering Peaks and the 2 attack buff. For creatures, I wanted to go with a theme of utility. We're going to want to throw threats at the opponent. Like Xenagos, we are going to be looking for creatures that have some sort of static ability while on the battlefield that help control the game, like Dosin the Falling Leaf and Gaia's Herald. Both of these cards do great jobs at countering one of red and green's biggest weaknesses, countering. Green has a little bit more than of ability to recover from a good counter spell, but red will fall flat on its face every time, unless paired with another color 9 times out of 10. If you have a few more bucks to spend, I'd really suggest investing in a Vexing Shusher. The 2 mana 2/2, which can be played in any combination of red and green mana, cannot be countered, and its activated ability is pay 1 red or green, target spell cannot be countered by spells or abilities. With your color scheme you're running right now, this card would be essential, but it is a little pricey. In the essence of keeping a budget, I did leave in creatures like Plated Crusher, but I do think creatures like Flame Rush Rider, Chandra's Phoenix, Thunderbreak Regent, and Predator Ooze don't do enough to warrant a spot. Let me explain. Flame Rush Rider at best is a win more card in your deck. Turn 4, you are not swinging with anything that you will want to duplicate, so usually that turn is better spent ramping out more and controlling the board. Chandra's Phoenix is not powerful enough to run in this deck. Yes, it gives you 2 devotion, but chances are that damage is not going to do much for you, and your spells are going to want to be saved to combo out a bit. Thunderbreak Regent may not be too bad a card in a dragon-themed Xenagos deck, something that you can totally build, and you do have some minor dragon synergy already, but we would need to commit to that strategy, and I don't see enough essential pieces here to run that. Predator Ooze is a card that may have its way back into your deck at some point depending on what your meta is. It can be a pretty big threat if played early game and if not dealt with, but even in a 2-color deck, sometimes you get a little mana screwed, and I feel for its cost and the chances of it getting exiled once you can actually start doing things with it, I would try to find something better, but save it for later if you think it can help you. I also removed all but one of the Eldrazi. As fierce as they are, we need to be able to maintain a good curve while also playing creatures that give us utility and allow us to answer questions or force your opponents to make bad choices. Cards like Steel Hellkite, Malignus, and Deus of Calamity provide a more persistent and early threat than Ulamog's Crusher. Finally, I always find it fun to have an ace up my sleeve when playing, and that ace is your Putrefax. The 5/3 trample, haste, infect for 5 can just be what the doctor ordered to end a long drawn-out game, or to quickly eliminate a player at the table. Plays like this can quickly turn you into the shithead of the group depending on who you were playing with, so just use it with caution. Personally, I'm all about it though. For the artifacts, I usually like to go loud. For the artifacts, I usually like to load up on mana rocks, but for this deck, a good deal of your control is going to come from artifacts. Still using the Soul Ring and adding in the Gruul's Signet, you will see cards like Quite a Spike and Argentum Armor have been dropped from more control-based cards like Lifecrafter's Bestiary and Whispersilk Cloak. Mage Slayer is going to be one of the best cards in this deck as well. For the enchantments, I just hook out Messenger Speed. While good in some decks, its strength is a bit wasted here since it's only really a 1-drop aura that gives a creature trample, since your general already gives haste, and this isn't really the best used spot for a 1-slot card. Something like this would work much better in a Shu Yun deck. For the Planeswalkers, I did a bit of an overhaul, and this is definitely the most expensive part of the deck since I recommend running 3 additional walkers. At the time of recording this, Arlinn Kord, Domri Raid, and Garruk Primal Hunter altogether cost close to $21, but the abilities these walkers give will certainly give you a leg up. Garruk provides a very essential card draw, and combined with Xenagos, you can easily refresh your hand in a single turn. Hell, I'd even think about putting in a Reliquary Tower if you find yourself drawing 15 cards in a single dropping of Garruk. Domri is a great way to filter through your deck while providing some spot removal, and Arlinn Kord works so well with Xenagos, it's not even fucking funny. The weakest walker out of all of these is Sarkhan, but the fact that he comes into play with a threaten built into him can be another ace up your sleeve if you were in a dire spot, as well as providing haste for someone you do not want to proc with Xenagos. Planeswalkers are free spells you cast every turn, and the value of these cards cannot be understated. If you cannot afford the walkers, then never fear. You mainly run walkers for utility, so focus on cards that put you in a more threatening position or create choices for your opponent to make that player make bad decisions, like Curse of Bloodletting. So instead of having the opponent decide, should I attack the player or the Planeswalker? Make them think, should I remove their creature or destroy Curse of Bloodletting so I won't get one-hit KO'd? Moving on to sorceries, you'll see all I did was take out Molten Rain and restock. Molten Rain is not very powerful and can be used to disrupt an early gameplay or potentially remove a threat like Maze of Ith, but unless your meta is playing with cards like those, I would say switch it out for Stone Rain, unless you really want the Chandra's Phoenix synergy. Restock may sound like an odd choice, and if there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I love recursion and reanimating and just putting stuff in my graveyard and taking it back out again. But at 5 mana, you really should look at something a tad cheaper and better like Regrowth or something like that. If you find your game's going pretty long, it may also be a good idea to invest in a Praetor's Council as well. Chandra's Ignition is a fantastic way to clear the board after you swing or get an additional damage in to seal your victory. Cards like this and Fling are going to want to be used after combat as well, so in your second main phase. Speaking of Fling, with the home stretch coming up and with finally Instance the only part of your deck left to talk about, you'll see that I removed quite a bit, but ended up replacing almost everything. I think you had too little removal and threats to play at instant speed. Become Immense can be pretty powerful and can definitely be a surprise for your opponent, but Giant Growth does almost nothing for you. I wanted to focus on control, like Closing Grip and Signal the Clans, being able to remove threats and get your win conditions in your hand. Flaying and Soul's Fire allow you to deal damage in the second main phase or in response to hard removal. When combined with something like Ghoul Treat, you can deal more than 40 damage in one turn, and it's actually a pretty easy combo to pull off too if you had that going on for you. Aside from the Planeswalkers, this deck is actually cheaper than the one you sent me. There are obvious cuts still to be made and cards that should be added, such as Regrowth, Worldly Tutor, but running a more focused deck like this will teach you how to build more efficiently. So really, that's all for me, Quigs. That's all for this first little video. If you want to check out the decks I just talked about, I will have the original deck and my deck in the description below. And if you have a deck you want me to take a look at, send it to thedirtydylonshow@gmail.com or tweet me at dirtydylonshow. I had a lot of fun making this video. Let me know what you would like to see. Should I break down the decks card by card and talk about them? That might take a little bit more time, but I would totally love to do it and just gasm all over the place. Should I focus on a more budget starts, or should I go full top tier baller? Money is no option. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, you know, whatever. But I would love to make more. Thanks, and have a good night, everybody.